Hello everybody, thank you for joining me today. This is Jim Antaki from TurboHarp, broadcasting from my laboratory, aka basement, in Ithaca, New York. I'd like to give you a little tour of the research and the development that I've been doing over the years, past, present, and future. I'd like to start with just a little history for those of you that don't know me. It all started for me when I met Howard Levy. And I met him by way of Dr. Henry Bonson, who happened to be the chief of the Department of Surgery at the University of Pittsburgh, where I was working at the time. Dr. Bonson attended Howard's workshop at the Augusta. I think it was 1994, thereabouts. And he was so enamored and fascinated with Howard that he convinced Howard to come to Pittsburgh to undergo some experiments on his embouchure and vocal tract. That culminated right here with Wall Street Journal article, 1999, front page on a Monday edition, above the fold. There's Dr. Bonson, and there's me. And that, as I said, was what kicked everything off. So what happened next was a series of innovations that I'm going to show you in not necessarily logical order, because everything's kind of scrambled. But here's just a little display case, that kind of a walk down history lane for TurboHarp. And I'm going to just grab a few of these artifacts and carry them into the lab. So, okay, follow me into the lab, and you can meet me in just a second. So I'm going to start here in this part of my basement, put those down for a second, and introduce you to the first experimental apparatus that we use with Howard Levy. You see, it is a golden melody that has been figured with two proximity sensors attached to the blow and the draw reeds, and attached to this device. And I'm going to take you to the other lab to show you what happened with this device, and then we'll be back in a second. So one of our interests when working with Howard, there are two interests really. One had to do with the coupling or the interaction of the embouchure, the physiology with the harmonica playing. And the second was the physics of how the reeds operated. We built an apparatus very much like this one, in fact, this one, in which we had a syringe that represents the volume of air in the oral cavity. And the point being that if I were to, let's say, draw air, suck air out of this syringe and adjust the air volume, you'll hear a change in pitch. That you'll recognize as a draw bend. And then the next part of that experiment is measuring the vibration of the blow reed using that apparatus that was in the other room, but this is a replica. So there's a sensor on the blow reed. The yellow trace is the blow vibration, and with any luck you'll see it vibrating when I start blowing. Okay, now I'm going to draw air, and we would expect nothing to come out of the blow reed. Now I'm going to draw air and draw a draw bend, focusing on this tracing, and you're going to see what happens to the blow reed while I'm sucking or while I'm doing a draw bend. Okay, so the interesting thing there is that the blow reed obviously engaged when you began the draw bending. And then conversely, with an overblow, the opposite happens. The blow reed starts off vibrating, and then the vibration translates to the draw reed. And I'm going to illustrate that with another harmonica jumping forward in time and then we're going to have to go back in time. So I apologize for that confusion, but bear with me. I'll be with you in just a second. All right, welcome back. I would like to now show you an experiment with a harmonica of the future. So pretend that you don't see this harmonica. We'll come back to it. Pretend we're using the apparatus from 1999. Connected to this oscilloscope. Remember that yellow is blow and red is draw. I'm going to blow and then draw. And then I'm going to do a draw bend. So it's self-explanatory. The vibration transitions from the blow to the draw reed, and if I were to do an overblow, which I'm not going to dare do right now, you'd see the opposite happening. So that takes me back to the other lab. So I'll meet you in just a second. Okay, returning back to 1999 and back to this apparatus that was in an experiment with Howard Levy. We had connected the output of the sensors to a computer, and we were watching the tracings on the oscilloscope screen, and then by accident, it's a long story, but by accident we flipped a switch, and then the signal, instead of going to the computer, went to the speakers in the room that we were recording. And when that happened, this happened. And I suddenly realized that this was an electric harmonica. Attaching a pickup to the harmonica reeds basically allows the acoustic harmonica to become like an electric guitar, except a harmonica. So that takes us through a little walk down memory lane, because that harmonica that used proximity sensors that were actually very expensive, they're like $400 a piece, led to this harmonica that had 10 proximity sensors. And at the time, I was fascinated about separating the draw notes from the blow notes and the high notes from the low notes, thinking that separating out those channels would be of interest. That turned out to be super complicated. So I then tried another approach in which I attached painstakingly little piezoelectric sensors to each of the reeds, gluing them down and running wires. That resulted in this version of a golden melody with 20 of those little piezo sensors. That was a pain, but it was a historical moment, which then evolved into a slightly more sophisticated version, this one, which is based on a Lee Oscar. You can see there's 10 resistors, a little circuit board, and take my word for it, each of the reeds has a sensor. It went to a MIDI-like cable that went to a box. This is the box that allowed you to balance the left and the right, the blow and the draw. And that evolved into that prototype, and that became a cute little package deal with this prototype, with this cute little mixer. Once again, blow, draw, high, low. I never sold any of these because it was just too much effort to make. So this is like one of 3 or so in existence. However, in evolving from that sensor to that sensor, I realized, or I discovered, that I could replace the piezo sensors and the proximity sensors with an optical sensor. So we created circuit boards that had little optical reflectance sensors on each of the 20 reeds, and then we packaged them in this handy-dandy little case. And that was what I was just demoing for you a moment ago. Okay, so this became the TurboHarp ELX, as we called it. You can tell it went through 5 generations, and it was sold in a little handy-dandy case with an RP70 effects processor. And you could do things like, just for example, for one thing you could do is turn up your volume to 10 and play the harmonica as loud as you wanted to. but more importantly, you could do things that you can only do like with an electric guitar. So let's just do an example. So you get the idea. We sold about 200 of them, but they were so painstaking for me to make. After I sold out all of the circuit boards, I decided to give myself like a permanent break. However, being a glutton for punishment, I hatched another idea of how to do this much more efficiently and simply. And there is the conceptual model. I'm going to show you the actual model back in this lab. So follow me. So that brings us to the ELX harmonica of the future, which is this one here, using these new circuit boards. And you can hear it's pretty crisp and pretty hot. In and of itself, it's kind of boring. But combined with an effects unit, like, for example, this effects unit, a little too loud. So I think that's a lot of fun. This ELX isn't quite for sale yet, but when it is, it's going to come in at a price point somewhere under $200, maybe as low as like $149, depending on how efficiently I can make them. Okay, that does it for electric harmonicas for the time being. Forget about this mess over here. We'll get to that in a minute. So let's instead go back in time again to 1999 to over there, in which another parallel research and development was going on. I don't remember the sequence of events, but I remember there was a convergence of two things. One was because I was taking harmonicas on and off and opening them up, I was getting extremely frustrated with these screws and needing 3 hands to open up a harmonica, and just recognizing that it's an ancient design with sharp corners, and out of frustration I thought of making it ergonomic. So one day while watching TV, I got some clay and modeled it on a special 20 conformal to my hand. Now the other thing that was happening on the same time is I had just attended Phil Wiggins' workshop at Augusta, and as you know, Phil Wiggins has an amazing big sound, and it's partly his physiology and his just awesomeness, but it's also to a great extent the size of his hands and the way that he cups the harmonica. Furthermore, it has a lot to do with the airtight seal between the hand and the cover plate. So even a little bit of leakage can impair that modulation. Okay, so step one was coming up with a nice ergonomic shape, which I then 3D scanned and 3D printed, and then incorporated different kinds of latch mechanisms. That was a fail, and this was a win. This is a dovetail snap mechanism, from which I made a rubber mold that allowed me to make about a couple of dozen prototypes that I circulated to people, many of whom you know, and possibly even on this in this workshop. So based on that, we tweaked the design, and voila, was born the Turbo Lid. This was our first commercial product. It went for $7.95. We sold a lot of them, but it was like far from like a business, selling like a plastic accessory for a harmonica. We did have very nice packaging, and we have lots of colors from Clear, which is the flagship, this cobalt blue, black, and then we introduced some psychedelic colors, and even at one point, and I think we still offer engraved versions. Besides being really attractive and ergonomic, no rough edges, as I said, being able to cup the harmonica really well. This one, A, all right, creates that seal, and now it really enhances your hand effects, your wah-wah effects. So I still love the turbo lid, but as I said, it wasn't really a business. And I then had this epiphany that people don't want a piece of a harmonica, they wanted to buy a harmonica. So that led us to pairing the turbo lid with the Special 20. And that led to the Special 20. Oh, and I just remembered, another advantage of the turbo lid is you can now color code your harmonica collection. Not to mention, you will never pick up your harmonica upside down and play, I don't know, this when you meant to play, because it's impossible to pick up upside down even if your eyes are closed. So this is the Turbo 20. This is currently for sale on our website, and it comes in all of these attractive colors, including the designer colors. Beyond the Turbo 20, we kind of expanded into the children's harps. So I introduced the Groovy harp, which is simply an inexpensive, transparent Hohner happy harp, which interestingly came out exactly at the time the turbo lid came out. All right, I'm going to move on from lids and cover plates to the reeds themselves and the mechanics of the harmonica. Going back in time to Dr. Bonson, even before I got involved with Dr. Bonson, he was so fascinated and to the point of obsession about learning overblows. He invented and patented what he called the Bonson overblow harmonica. And if you remember what I said earlier about, remember what I said about screws? Well, that's another illustration of frustration with screws. Oh, come on. Hang on just a second. There's no need to panic. I can use my fingernail. All right, let's try that again. Dr. Bonson realized that when you overblow, the blow reed stops vibrating and the draw reed starts vibrating. So his idea was to put a valve on the blow plate that blocks off the blow notes. I think his first experiment was literally putting his finger over the blow reeds, which I'm sure many of you who have tried overblowing have done. But his little invention has a little clever slide here, and he also has a slide on inside the comb to facilitate overdraws. I'll dare try an overblow, although I haven't practiced, but let's just see what happens, try my luck. Okay, this is without the slide. Okay, so I guess I'm better than I thought I was. It's a lot crisper, and for those that can't overblow, this is a great way to train your embouchure to figure out how to get the overblow. Overdraws, as you know, much harder. I'll try a 7 overdraw. And I'm not going to bother with a 9 overdraw. As a homage to Dr. Bonson, I thought I could reintroduce it in the Special 20, and that led to a couple of prototypes of a similar mechanism, and then a turbo lid based version. And I maybe sold a couple of them, but like most everything else I do, I'm really good at starting things And then I realized it's just too much painstaking labor, so I don't offer those anymore. Unless you're really, really interested, I'll go out of my way. But that's overblow research inspired yet further interest into the reed itself. And if you go on my website or go to YouTube, you'll see all kinds of experiments that we did, including experiments with 10 times sized reeds with a vacuum cleaner, high-speed camera, and smoke visualization to kind of observe how the reed works, with particular emphasis on when a reed chokes, which is one of the most frustrating things about the design of reeds and kind of the holy grail. So that's an interesting basic science, but a practical application happened one day when I had this epiphany on my way home from work about the geometry of the reed. I guess I should go back to this. And the fact that the space around the reeds is kind of wasted space. It's kind of wasted airflow. As any of you that burnish your reeds or your reed plates would recognize. So I was thinking about the flanks of the reeds and how to deal with that leakage problem. And I came home one day from work and took a Lee Oscar and put little strips of black electrical tape adjacent to the reeds. And lo and behold, the harmonica played so much more airtight with such greater compression. That led to another patent. I was really excited about it. It evolved, but first I made a more sophisticated version in which I removed all the reeds. I countersunk all of the roots of the reeds and the tips of the reeds, both on the blow and on the draw side. So the reed is kind of embedded flat with the reed plate. And this is really, really tight. Okay, that was too hard to make, but in a moment of brilliance, it occurred to me that instead of embedding the reeds into the reed plate, why not just wrap something around the reed plate? So then I photo etched a plate, which we call the turbo liner, that goes on both the draw side, and you can't see the one on the blow side because it's underneath, and it accomplishes the same thing. That harmonica is known affectionately as the TurboHarp AX S20. And that is something that I still make and I still sell. You can get it on their website. Okay, while you're here, you may be wondering what this thing is doing. It has nothing to do with any of this. It just happens to be here. But it was part of a reaction to a debate at the time about the importance of the comb material. Even to this day, there's this folklore about plastic versus bamboo versus pear wood, mahogany. And I wanted to demonstrate that what is really important, more so than the actual material, is the shape of the chamber, the amount of volume. So I'll just demonstrate by picking a random note. I'll maybe pick a 4 blow, and I'm going to slide this little slider, which effectively changes the volume of the air chamber. You can hear the timbre of the note changing dramatically. And also the ability to bend and overblow is affected. Now, I'd go through all 10, but that would bore you, and plus we have limited time together. So I'm going to move on to another bench in just a second. Another light bulb moment on my way home. Again, I don't know what inspired me. I was wondering what would happen if a magnet were brought near a magnetic reed. And you may know the answer, but I didn't at the time. Here's a little magnet, like a refrigerator magnet. I'm going to try to just do this with my hand. that was an amazing moment in history when I realized that. And I got so excited, I didn't sleep, wrote another patent that led to, actually I think I instantly made a prototype on a bandsaw of the first, what became the turbo slide. So it's just a bunch of magnets, the same magnets on a little sliding mechanism I literally just kind of made by hand. This one, I don't know how well it plays, but what the heck. Way out of tune, but it's a historical artifact. And you can see I went through a number of iterations with the original Seidel silver, then various turbo lid based versions, and also a special 20 version. And these are now also available. They're pretty popular. Turbo Slide on our website. And combine it with different open tunings or special tunings, and you can do some pretty cool stuff. FYI, there is a version in which the reeds will become sharper, but I don't make them because for the same reason, it's so painstaking. I have to glue teeny tiny magnets onto each of the reeds in order to interact with the sliding magnet. So there's only like 6 of these in existence. If I ever figure out an easy way of doing it, I'll let you know. A variation on the theme was a realization that the very act of changing the pitch of the reed to bend, kind of like a whammy bar, could be used as a tuner. So this is almost the same harmonica, but instead of a sliding rack, it's a fixed rack, and it allows you to take an Allen wrench and tune your harmonica, just like you would tune a banjo. That is known as the Tune Master. Tune Master, the harmonica you can tune. And then last, since we're just here, I have one last little artifact, novelty to show you, and that is what was supposed to be the Christmas harmonica. I made this prototype, it must have been around 2006 or so, and it's been on my to-do list ever since. That's in our future harmonica bench. Okay, I'm returning to this mess that I told you not to pay attention to earlier. This is an unrelated project, another kind of active obsession to create a harmonica that was less loud, that you could practice, kind of like you know how a trumpet player can use a mute to practice. And that turned out to be not as easy as you would think. But it's not bad. It actually reduces the sound by about 8 or to 10 dB. So that's not so bad. And interestingly, if you combine it with a stethoscope, attach it to the air chamber, it's super loud in your ear. Welcome back to the year 2021 and the MIDI harmonica of the present. This is so present, it like just came into existence, or it just started working for the first time like yesterday, Monday. So I have it hooked up to my computer. I haven't really played around with it much. I was just enamored that it works. So I'll just like illustrate with random effects. Okay, that's harmonica, which is kind of useless. But if you pick the right effect, and I pre-recorded a few, so bear with me. I'm just going to play through them rather than play them live. Banjo. It's also a lot of fun. That one's called Enchanted Woods. These are all common patches. There are many software apps like GarageBand, and this one's Mixcraft. I've been using it for, my goodness, like 10 years now, that event. This is my first SPAH in 2010. My daughter was 6 years old. SPAH 2015 in Colorado. We had a good time there. And here we are in the present, in 2021. And hand me the camera. And here we have our cameraman and producer of the show, my daughter of the present.
Thank you.
So I look forward to seeing you all in the future at the next SPAH 2022. Thanks so much for dropping in and for your attention and your interest.
Bye.
Bye-bye.